We are back with a brand new video, and we are back with continuing our series that we have just started in the last video on the channel, which is ranking/grading the draft lottery classes since the 2010 NBA draft class onwards. We are now doing the 2011 draft class, which is a very, very interesting draft class. You know, obviously at the top you have some really nice picks, and we're just going to be taking a look at the lottery in this series. But I do want to shine some light before we start on some players who really exceeded expectations, who were drafted outside the lottery, and specifically later on in the draft. Obviously, right outside the lottery, we have two players who were both all-stars, one of them being one of the greatest players in the history of the game. Kawhi Leonard at 15, Nikola Vucevic at 16, easily our top 10 draft picks if you were to redraft this year. Kawhi Leonard would probably be the #1 pick. Iman Shumpert at 17, Tobias Harris at 19, Reggie Jackson at 24, Nikola Mirotic at 23, Corey Joseph at 29, Jimmy Butler at 30. Jimmy Butler at 30? Are you kidding me? That is a crazy value. For Jimmy Butler at 30, seeing what he's turned out to be now. Bojan Bogdanovic at 31, Chandler Parsons at 38, Davis Bertans at 42, DeAndre Liggins at 53, Etuan Moore at 55, and Isaiah Thomas being the last pick in this draft. That just sums up how much of this draft, how many of these players signed who weren't even in the lottery band. But we're going to be taking a look at the lottery now. I did see the comments in the comment section. A couple of you guys wanted me to improve my videos using a couple of suggestions. I really appreciated the clip suggestions and the suggestions for me to include game stats. Probably will be including stats for this video. As far as the clips are concerned, I do want to take some time in creating clips that will not get copyrighted. I understand that there is a rule that if there's a clip under 10 seconds, it won't get copyright striked. So I'm going to be working on that for the next part of this channel, for the next part of this series. But for right now, you'll see the career stats of the players. Shout out to whoever, I forgot your name, man, but you know who you are with the suggestions. So shout out to you, both of you actually, both of the comments. And yeah, if you guys want to get involved in the channel, make sure you guys leave a comment just as to what I can improve or what you guys like with the video, what you guys dislike. Leave a like if you guys enjoy the video, and subscribe to the channel if you're new on the road to 200 subscribers. Let's get right into it. We did a lot of rambling there, but we are underway with the #1 overall pick, which is Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving at #1. I mean, we can all agree that this is one of the best picks in the draft, and the Cleveland Cavaliers will be super happy with this pick. This is a guy that helped them win their first championship in their franchise's existence, and he was one of their best players in history. I know the ending was a little sour, and even with the trade requests and all that stuff, and a lot of Cavs fans don't like him anymore, but you can't deny that he was one of the most integral pieces in, bringing them the championship. He probably, depending on who you ask, the biggest shot in NBA history in Game 7 of the Finals, man. Yeah, Kyrie Irving, you're giving this pick an A+ if you were to redraft it or regrade it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm giving this pick an A+. No, nothing really, special there, man. I mean, we all know Kyrie is one of the best players in the history of the game, and I'm just excited to see him back for a full season this season, after the mandate has been lifted and whatnot. But this is an A+ pick, Kyrie Irving. At #2, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves selecting Derrick Williams. Now, a lot of y'all might not be familiar with that name. This is a guy who was a really good basketball player from Arizona, man. He also, I'm pretty sure he's currently playing in Greece, but he was a really good player in Arizona. Actually did not have that bad of a rookie season. He was all rookie second team. In his second year, he averaged 12 and 6 rebounds. The second year was probably his best year, but after his second year, he didn't really play that much in his third season due to injury. Only played 11 games. Then was traded to Sacramento from Minnesota, and after that, I mean, he was really a rotational piece slash a bench player for the remainder of his career, which was not really too long. His career only lasted about seven years or 8 years or something like that. But he was an okay player in like his prime, I guess, in quotation marks prime. But for the second overall pick, this was extremely underwhelming. You would have to give this an F, because this is probably one of the biggest busts in NBA history. I get he was not out of the league as soon as a lot of people were, but for a second overall pick, you were expecting a lot more from Derrick Williams. So this is going to be an F for me. The third overall pick is Enes Kanter. And Enes Kanter, now known as Enes Freedom, was selected from the Utah Jazz, or by the Utah Jazz. He was an overseas player, obviously from Turkey, but also played at Kentucky in college. He was a Kentucky alumni. And he was a pretty solid player in the league in his time. Obviously, right now, he's not playing. I think a lot of that is because of his comments off the floor, whatever. He has a lot of stuff going on outside the court. But when he was playing and when he was in his prime, man, there was a year in OKC where he was averaging 19 and 11. He was a very solid NBA player. He was, not a bum. He was not a star. He was just a solid role player who played his part. Even had some seasons, like I said, that you could argue that he was an all-star caliber player, especially that 2014-15 season where he averaged 19 and 11. Career highs in minutes there, career highs in field goal percentage. Like, he was killing that year in Oklahoma City. Obviously, got traded from Utah to Oklahoma City after 2014, or I think in the middle of the year in 2014, he got traded during the deadline. And then played in New York for a little bit. We all remember that incident with LeBron. Played in Boston twice, Portland once, started his career off in Utah. He's one of the best offensive rebounders in the league, but he's also one of the worst. He was also one of the worst pick and roll defenders in the league, especially when teams were just targeting him in pick and roll situations, just bringing him up and isoing their way to the basket. He was a terrible rim protector, but he was a really good rebounder, and his rebounding really, kept him a job in the league. He was a serviceable backup center for a lot of these teams. He even started a little bit in Oklahoma City until Steven Adams really emerged. But for the third overall pick, I'm gonna give this a solid C or C plus. He was just an average player, man. I don't really have anything much more to say about Enes Kanter. Just an average player. Obviously, right now, we all know what's going on off the court. But when he was on the court and when he was playing, especially in his OKC years, he was a really solid player. So I'm gonna give this a C or a C plus. Moving on to number 4, we have Tristan Thompson, another player who's most notoriously known for his activities outside the court. But I'm not gonna get into that. You guys all know what I'm talking about there. But Tristan Thompson, like Kyrie Irving, was selected by the Cleveland Cavaliers and was also on that 2016 roster where the championship was won by the Cavaliers. He is still in the league to this day, and he is, playing for the. I think he played for the Chicago Bulls last. I don't know who he signed with right now. I don't even know if he was re-signed by the Bulls, but either he's a free agent or he's on the team. I cannot really think of which one at the moment, but he was on the Cavaliers until like 2020. He spent like 8 or 9 years there. And, say what you want about Tristan Thompson, man. When he was, playing in those championship seasons, he really did it. He really did a solid job. I'm not going to lie. Offensive rebounding, Tristan Thompson. In 2016, when they won the championship, his offensive rebounding was huge. And he provided some great minutes to the Cavaliers, especially after they went with the decision of getting rid of Timothy Mozgov's minutes and going with a smaller ball center in Tristan Thompson, who would bring more energy, rim running presence, offensive rebounds, who wasn't as slow-footed. He was a really big piece in winning that championship, and I know right now he's in the news for a lot of different things that do not relate to his ability to play basketball. But again, when he was on the court in those Cavaliers seasons where they were going to the finals, he was a very solid piece. I'm giving this a C. I think this is an average pick at number 4. I guess it's a little bit underwhelming, so I could give it like a C minus. But he was not a bust. I mean, right now he might be a bum, but when he was in his prime, I guess with the Cavaliers, he was far from that. He even got paid a lot of money because of that. So, yep, that is Tristan Thompson there for you. At number 5, we have Jonas Valanciunas getting selected by the Toronto Raptors. Overseas player, obviously. Jonas Valanciunas, as we all know right now, is one of the most underrated centers, in my opinion, in this league. He's an extremely underrated player, man. I think that on the glass, scoring the ball, he had a game last season where he had like 7 or 8 threes. Like, he was going ridiculous from downtown in a couple of those games and with the Pelicans. I'm actually a huge fan of Jonas Valanciunas' game. And like I said, I think he's still underrated to this day. Obviously played in Toronto, was traded mid-season when, Toronto went for Marc Gasol, and Marc Gasol was traded to the Raptors. Jonas was traded to the Grizzlies. And I think he's really had his best years since he's left the Raptors. And I think that, in the first part of the Memphis seasons, where I think after he was traded, he was averaging like 20 and 10 or 20 and 11. Then he averaged 15 and 11. Then he averaged 17 and 12. And then most recently, with his first season in New Orleans, he averaged 18 and 11. with 3 assists per game. Like, he is a guy that I think is criminally underrated to this day. Definitely a top 10 center right now. I'm giving this pick a B, even a B plus. I think that this is a really good pick. And for the Raptors, especially, even if they really didn't maximize his talent, they used him to get a piece that would really help them, push and compete and eventually win a championship in Marc Gasol. So they're happy. I'm pretty sure he's happy with his career right now. I think he's one of the best players to not be an all-star in this league right now. Like, I think he's a very underrated player. So yeah, like I said, I'm giving this a B, maybe even a B plus. Next player, Jan Vesely. I know a lot of y'all might be like, who is Jan Vesely? Jan Vesely was a power forward from the Czech Republic who was drafted 6th overall by the Washington Wizards. And there is a reason a lot of people do not know his name, because he was out of the league in like 3 or 4 years. I think he is one of the biggest busts in the history of the game. And I think that this is an auto F pick. Like I said, this is no disrespect to Jan. I'm pretty sure he's doing his thing over there with the Euro League. I'm pretty sure he's playing for Barcelona in the Spanish Liga, ACB or whatever. I think that right now, we can consider Jan Vesely as the biggest bust in history, and not the biggest bust in history, one of the biggest busts in history. And I think that it's unfortunate because the Wizards and the Wizards fans probably had high hopes for him, but just did not really work out. And yeah, that is definitely one of the biggest busts in the history of basketball. He is getting an automatic F. And yeah, I don't really have much more to say about Jan Vesely. I don't want to keep trashing his career, but it is what it is, I guess. At number 7, we have the Sacramento Kings, who traded the pick to Charlotte Hornets, taking Bismack Biyombo. Bismack Biyombo obviously is still in the league to this day. I'm pretty sure he's playing. He just signed a nice deal with the Suns, man. Biyombo's a solid backup center, man. I think he is a very solid backup. I think a lot of teams would love him as their backup center. I think he did a serviceable job for Phoenix in the last couple in this last season when he was signed by them. But even with Charlotte, he was okay. Played for Orlando a little bit, Toronto for a year. He's just okay. Like, there's nothing really special about Bismack Biyombo. I'd probably give this pick a C or like a C minus. It would be in the same mold of like a Tristan Thompson, maybe even lower though. I think like if you were ranking the careers of Enes Kanter, Tristan Thompson, and Bismack Biyombo, he'd probably fall under the category of being the worst one out of the 3. But it's still not a terrible pick because he's still in the league to this day. He's not a bust by any means. He was selected 7th overall, so it's not like you selected him with the top 3 pick. You probably give this guy a C minus or a C for what he's done so far in the league. So yeah, that is the 7th overall pick. And as we move on to 8, we have the Detroit Pistons selecting Brandon Knight. Now, Brandon Knight is most notoriously known for how he's been put on countless posters, crossed up numerous times, and been put on the wrong end of highlights. But Brandon Knight was actually a very solid player back in the day. I don't think a lot of people understand. Brandon Knight used to be a hooper, man, and he was a guy who was at once upon a time averaging 20 points per game in one of his years in Phoenix. Like, he is a very underrated player. He was a very underrated player back in the day. Right now, he's not really getting too many minutes. I think he last played for the Mavericks last season where he was okay. He averaged like 6 points per game. Played with Detroit before that where he averaged 12. Brandon Knight is not a bad player. He is not a bad player by any means. I'm pretty sure he played for Miami's G League team last season. And he's a guy that I know a lot of people like to clown him, and he's the butt of a lot of jokes and stuff. But when he was on the court, he was not a bad player at all. Especially, I know in Milwaukee, he averaged like 18 points per game 2 years in a row. He averaged 20 points per game in Phoenix. He was just a guy who was just steady, but at times could just explode. And I think that's what he is. He was, man. In Kentucky, he was one of the best players. He made first team All SEC. He was SEC All Freshman team. He's from Florida. He was 2-time Florida Mr. Basketball, McDonald's All American. He had a very good resume before he made it to the league. And in the league, he was still a serviceable player. So I'm not gonna trash on this pick at all. I think at number 8, which I think is what we were on, it's a good pick. I think it's not a bad pick at all. And I think it's unfortunate because Brandon Knight was on the wrong end of a lot of highlights, but that's not really something you could control. So I'm gonna give this pick a C. I think this is a solid pick for the Pistons, man. There's nothing really bad about this pick at all to me. So this is a C to me. And then you move on to one of the best picks in the draft, Kemba Walker at 9, Charlotte Bobcats, who then transferred to the Hornets. Kemba Walker has become their best, or not best, but most accomplished scorer in the history of the franchise. He leads the franchise in scoring, and you could clearly say that this is a pick that is an A, if not an A+. Like, this is an extremely good pick for the Hornets / Bobcats. And like I said, 4-time All-Star, All-NBA third team. This is a guy who led his team and led his franchise in scoring, beat Del Curry's record in 2019. Before he's had a couple of injuries recently, but before his injuries in 2019, he was averaging 26 points per game and four rebounds per game, 6 assists per game. He was one of the hardest players to guard, man. He was a problem, and I'm still rooting for him to this day because I think the injuries have really slowed him down. But before the injuries, prime Kemba Walker was a force to be reckoned with. He was definitely a force to be reckoned with. I think a lot of people, there was a debate, and I think a lot of people might remember this. When Kemba Walker was in his prime, a lot of people were putting Kemba Walker and Kyrie Irving side by side, being like, okay, these two, Isaiah Thomas, Damian Lillard. I think obviously Steph Curry had won his MVPs by then, but Kemba Walker was up there. He was up there for sure. This is a pick that's going to be an A or an A+, depending on who you ask. For me, it's going to be an A. I think A+ is reserved for like perfect picks. I think Kyrie Irving is an example of that. But yeah, Kemba Walker is going to be an A for me. Next, speaking of guys who did not really live up to their expectations, from number 6, we have number 10, Jimmer Fredette, another guy who's a very decorated player. Went to BYU and is still a bucket getter in the CBA today. I mean, and the NBA just did not really work out, man. I mean, like I said, very decorated player, but in the NBA just did not work out at all. And he was a bust. By all accounts, he was a bust. Now, he wasn't as big of a bust as Jan Vesely, but I'm going to give this pick an F as well. Derrick Williams, I think, deserves an F. Jan Vesely deserves an F. And I think Jimmer Fredette also deserves an F. Again, man, it's just, unfortunate because in college he was such a bucket. He averaged like 29 points per game in his senior year. In the NBA, he just really struggled. And I think, as we're seeing right now in Shanghai, he's going crazy. He's averaged 37, 37, 37, and 27 in his 4 years. He was a bucket, but in the NBA it just did not work out. So that's unfortunate. But I guess that's just how it is for some players. But that's going to be an F for me. At number 11, Klay Thompson. We all know Klay Thompson deserves an A+, man. This pick, he was instrumental in the Warriors winning 4 championships. He's a 4-time champion, 5-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA third team, All-Defensive second team, 3-point contest champion, All-Rookie first team. He will go down as one of the best players in the history of basketball. Should have been top 75 to me. Unfortunately, did not make it. But Klay Thompson, no one can say anything bad about this pick. I just wish he was, didn't really suffer those 2 injuries, man. That would have, because you could even see last year, he was okay, but he wasn't the Klay Thompson of old. You know what I'm saying? Like, his 3-point percentage really declined. He struggled to move a little bit on the defensive end. I'm hoping he can get back to that Klay Thompson, from back in the day where he was one of the best players in basketball. So yeah, Klay Thompson will get an A+. Alec Burks is the 12th overall pick, Utah Jazz. Alec Burks is okay. I think that's the best word you can describe it. He played at Colorado. Right now, man, I mean, he had a couple of really good years, especially, with Golden State. He averaged like 16 a game. He averaged 12 a game with the Knicks, Philly. He was a good player in Utah. This is going to be a C, or maybe I'm considering just giving this a C+, because at number 12, to get a player who was averaging 13, 14, 16, like, those are some good numbers for a guy who was selected 12th overall. So I'm going to give Alec Burks a C+. I think this is a very good pick. And we can move on to 13, where we have the Phoenix Suns selecting Markieff Morris. Now, Markieff Morris, as we all know, is most known currently for the Jokic incident, but Before that, he was actually regarded as the better Morris twin coming out of college. And like Alec Burks, man, for a guy to be drafted this late in the lottery, he was just a very serviceable player. So I have to give this a C+ as well. Very, very serviceable player back in the day. Right now, he really struggled to see minutes, but I think, depending on who he signs with in the offseason, because he's still a free agent, we'll see what happens. Unfortunately, did not really get too much playing time with my Heat. I think a lot of that was because by the time he came back from his injury, I think that the rotation was already kind of set in stone, and he didn't really, get any minutes. But he's still a good player, as is his twin Marcus Morris, who was the last pick of the lottery in this class. And you can argue right now that he's had a better career than his twin Markieff. Again, not putting two brothers against each other, but I'm just saying, man, Markieff, I think has had a really good career. Averaged like 20 a game with the Knicks for a season. He's been a very solid player for the Clippers. He's just a really solid player, man. I think Markieff Morris is one of the most underrated power forwards in this league. Again, I'm probably going to give this a C+, maybe even a B-, because I think for the 14th overall pick, the last pick in the lottery, for what he's done and for how he's produced in the NBA, you got to give him props. And that's where we're going to wrap up the video, man. Again, I did talk about some of the guys towards the back end as well in the beginning of the video. So let me know if you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know, who your favorite player from this draft class is. Again, 2012 will be coming out very soon. And yeah, we're going to wrap it up here. I'll see y'all later as always. Peace.